Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. And again, little did I know back there almost 3 years ago when I began this series of videos, Freemasonry and Satanism, I had no idea how close I was with that name. So this video is going to be series number 2, my second video I made back in 2013, a re-release of it after I just watched it, and seeing if I still concurred with what I said back then on this book. Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. People don't believe in the Illuminati. I got books 100 years old with the words Illuminati in them. The God that serves elite Jews. I think it's becoming ever so much more obvious to more people, the satanic cult that rules the world. Now, Henry Makow is a Jewish man in Canada, PhD, smarter guy than me, should know what he's talking about. So this Jewish man wrote this book, Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. So if we're all wondering what's up with the gay agenda, the gay parades that look like people from a freak show, the way they behave and dress, the recent 2016 opening ceremony for that tunnel under the Swiss Alps, which was clearly, I don't care how dense you are, it was clearly a satanic ritual, even with the horns and the people in orange suits walking like zombies. If you haven't seen it, you need to go look it up. Just the opening ceremony or for the new tunnel in Switzerland under the Swiss Alps. All the dignitaries of the world were there for that. And they and the newscasters, the news stations, the announcers, everybody was in disbelief. What the heck is this? And on one railroad flatbed car, a lot of people were dressed in skimpy suits, you could almost see through, skin tight, and they were groping each other like they were involved in a grand orgy. If you know anything about the kabbalah, this religion, the Zohar, the Talmud, the Jewish Bible that says they can have sex with 3-year-olds. And all this stuff is so true. I just watched this video that you're going to see at the end of my little introduction video here. And I'm going to read one essay from this book that seems apropos to the conversation, updating myself what I did almost 3 years ago. And if you don't think I was a little insecure, if I wasn't sure of myself, but I had read books for almost 10 years and I felt it was time to pull the trigger and get the information out there, because the statistics say, I guess, throw a number out there, 90% of the people don't read books. So I thought to myself, well, how are people ever going to get the information in these books? They're just going to become lost, obscure books. So I had the brilliant idea that I would make videos with a book review. So the topic I chose is British Jewry Tried to Stop Zionism. This stuff is so important with the recent and organized Black Lives Matter. Supposedly tomorrow, 37 cities have been targeted. That would be the 15th of July. for rage protesting riots. Somebody's trying to bring about chaos and anarchy in America to destroy it, just like they did in all those countries in the Middle East. So let me just read this and try to say that this information is important. It's urgent. People get it. And don't believe me, go buy the book. See the eye on there? The reptilian eye? Just like on the US $1 bill. The pyramid? Just like on the US $1 bill. You think this is just a joke. CERN, the collider, you should see the pictures there. They actually have this thing in the sky when they turn CERN on that looks, no clouds here now, but you can see the air and hear the sucking sound of a vortex opening. Oh my. British Jewry tried to stop Zionism. So there were people for the last 100 years who have written many books, and further back in time, trying to warn the world, but most people are so disinterested, full of apathy, and they don't want to be bothered. They're too busy with their own lives not to see the destruction looming ahead. We have to wake up. It's no coincidence they want to destroy religions, decency, and Christianity and bring us this Aleister Crowley Luciferic doctrine of anything goes. And even now they want to not only reduce the age of consent for young people to have sex, they want to eliminate it, period. They want pedophilia to be accepted as normal. I said this 7, 8, 9 years ago, and everybody told me, Rick, they won't go that far. Well, they were wrong, and I was right. What good does that do? I don't think the time is up yet. I think we still have time to turn a corner here in our reality. And be sure, I'm no saint. I make mistakes. I sin. But I don't celebrate sin. And I repent. I don't want to do sin. And I try to not do sin. And there could be some innocent things. But we all make mistakes. One of my neighbors did something very bad to me. And it's been all I could do lately to not be angry at him. You're supposed to forgive people. And I keep telling myself that. And asking God to help me have the strength to just forget what this person did, which I thought was very bad. You can't help your emotions sometimes. Alright. When the British cabinet issued the Balfour Declaration in 1917, I've talked about the Balfour Declaration, so I thought it would be appropriate to add it in this video, from Henry Makow, a Jewish PhD author in Canada. 1917, the Balfour Declaration. It was over the strenuous objections of its only Jewish member, Edwin Montagu. So the British cabinet had only one Jewish member, and he objected to the Balfour Agreement. In other words, if Rockefellers, the Zionists, Rothschilds, were to give Britain the money to turn the tide of the war that Britain was losing, London, and conspired to get the USA people in the war, in return, Britain would help the Jewish people, the Rothschilds, the Zionist Illuminati leader, who was the bankster, the top bankster of the world, annex the Palestinians' land. So all this, what's this, 2016? So for 1917, 99 years, there's been hell to pay for this. And we people in the USA, and I'm sure in Europe and the rest of the world, have suffered because of this. And I think the suffering is going to get much worse. We ain't seen nothing yet, according to my investigation. But non-Jews, including many anti-Semites, tipped the scales. Zionism was a way to advance British imperialism and the Masonic New World Order, the Freemasons. The Freemasons, the Illuminati, Zionists, Rosicrucians, are all one and the same into the Kabbalah, witchcraft, Zohar, the Talmud. So who's on top? As far as I can see right now, Rothschilds, and if they are really some reptilian creatures, as this eye seems to show, there's some beast called a Pindar, that when they do these rituals where they abduct somebody and viciously kill them on an altar, they shapeshift away from human form into some reptilian form with a snout and viciously start drinking the person's blood and eating the flesh. We're not dealing with anything very nice here. And in all my years of research, this theme and the history and the statues all over the world, gargoyles and dragons and snakes, seem to confirm that this is the case, what we're dealing with. Some, like Jesus said, you are of your father, the serpent. And we'll be getting into a couple books I've been reading. Holy Serpent of the Jews, Tex Mars. And another one that I've been reading. Somebody got a brilliant idea around the end of World War II. They said, wait a minute. Let's say there was a Holocaust and all these Jews were burned in this oven, gas ovens, to put a guilt trip on the world. And we'll use that to extract trillions, trillions, and trillions, and billions of dollars. And they did that. And apparently, according to this author and more material, it was all a hoax. 6 million people didn't get intendedly put into ovens and gassed. Jewish people, along with many others, and I suspect it was the good Jewish people, the Orthodox, and Christians and others were put into slave camps for factories and prisons, undesirables, not necessarily Jewish. But I do know that the Reformed Jews, the Illuminati type Zionists, needed to get rid of the Orthodox Jews. They were the obstacle in the way because they were objected, like this person here did, to Zionism and annexing the Palestinians' land, fulfilling prophecy, by the way. So, and of course, it was the Zionist Jewish banksters, Illuminati, Rockefeller, Chases, Rothschilds, etc., who financed Hitler, as per Suzanne and James Poole. I've gone over that book. We'll look at it again. And so many other books. So let me start reading this so I can get on with this video. Montagu, this is the only Jew in the British cabinet, who was the Secretary of State for India, told Prime Minister Lloyd George, all my life I have been trying to get out of the ghetto. You want to force me back there. An assimilated Jew, Montagu regarded Judaism as a religion. It is a cult, Luciferic, Satanic, and viewed Zionism as a mischievous political creed, untenable by any patriotic citizen of the United Kingdom. So this was a Jewish person in the British cabinet, high up, obviously educated in intelligence, saying these things. Not me. And a Jewish PhD author in Canada publishing this in his book, Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World. Henry Makow says it on the bottom there. M-E-K-O-W. His story teaches us that the New World Order is an elite conspiracy led by specific members of certain wealthy Jewish and non-Jewish dynasty families who often intermarry. It is not Jewish in terms of a conscious plan of the Jewish people who historically preferred assimilation. So, generally speaking, a lot of Jews wanted to assimilate with the world. But there's these, apparently, Ashkenazi Jews, from Khazaria, people who adopted Judaism, and others who are into magic, witchcraft, the Kabbalah, who want to bring about this new world order for domination, and my research is leading me to some very interesting things. Apparently, they're surveying all over the planet to determine where all the gold and other oil and other serious minerals are, like in Venezuela, and they are toppling those countries. And of course, here in the United States, they want to take away property rights and turn this into a communist/socialistic regime where people will be microchipped as per the Satanic religious prophecy. And apparently, according to the books I have, which I will go over really soon, I found some more books in my collection and others I just purchased. But man, back in the 60s and 70s and earlier, they were really bent on the overpopulation problem. It was almost like there were going to be so many people on planet Earth that we'd all be elbow to elbow and couldn't even move. The fear they were mongering. Looks like there's some interesting entities who just want to have the planet and have the people gone. Except enough to be sex slaves and worker slaves and probably entertainment slaves. And likely, it seems, food. Apparently they eat people. Drink the blood. Get some euphoric things. Sacrifice them to have interdimensional communication with demons, etc. On May 1917, a committee representing the leading Jewish organizations published a statement in the London Times saying emancipated Jews have no separate political aspirations. The establishment of a Jewish nationality in Palestine, founded on the theory of a Jewish homelessness, must have the effect of stamping the Jews as strangers in their native lands. The Balfour Declaration promised Jews a national homeland in Palestine, and I don't think Britain had any right to give away the Palestinians' lands. What do you think? How would you like it if they gave away Texas? It was payment to Zionists for getting the USA into World War I on Britain's side. It says it right here. Henry Makow, PhD author. Smarter guy than me. Go buy this book if you want to read all the truth. How many pages here? 248, almost 250. Zionist President Chaim Weizmann fumed that Jewish opposition was the main stumbling block to consummating the deal. The Jewish community was split. The Samuels and the Rothschilds favored the Balfour Agreement. It says Rothschilds right there. Cohn, Magnus, and Montefiore and Montagu were against it. So I said the Jews, from my research, that died in Germany, along with a lot of other Christians, gypsies, and a lot of other people, undesirables and also needed by the German regime for slaves in their prison camps. A lot of them died of disease and starvation, and maybe there were a lot of bodies exhumed like we do with cremation here in the United States. But apparently scientific evidence has been published. There were some testing was done, and there were no buildings where people were gassed to death. But they built the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. with taxpayer dollars. And they're trying to make it part of a guilt trip on America and part of the New Age Luciferic religion. We'll all have to worship these Zionist Jewish folks and ask their forgiveness for, I guess, them saying 6 million people were gassed to death. And I'm a bit curious, why put the guilt trip on the USA? We didn't go over there and do that. We're not guilty of doing that. But they're trying to make the whole world guilty for what happened, and apparently it didn't happen. And I have the book here. There was somebody, one of my commenters said, get this book. And I'm already up to page 101 out of 200 pages. And I've already have 30 minutes of a video completed. So they had a Balfour Agreement. The deal was with the Rothschilds to get the USA in the war and money. And then, of course, Britain would win the war, and the agreement was they were going to be assisting them in obtaining the Palestinians' land. So it was payment to the Zionists for getting the USA into World War I. And they tricked it. They lied to the people, President Woodrow Wilson, all his advisors were Jewish folks, most of them. And that was much to the dismay of representatives and congressmen and other aides, because they weren't allowed to get so close to President Woodrow Wilson. And before Woodrow Wilson was elected, another president wouldn't do the bidding of these Jewish people. So they said, okay, we'll finance and put a president in there that will do our bidding. And apparently they have done that ever since. The Jewish community was split. We said that. If it had been merely an issue between Zionism and non-Zionist factions within the community, there is little question that the latter would have won, writes Chaim Bermont in the Cousinhood. But there was a Gentile Zionist to consider, and they carried the day. So the Gentile Zionists would be the Masonic people and a lot of these turncoat religious people, Christians in the United States, who have been deceived and believe the Jews are the chosen people. When the truth of the matter is, according to Henry Makow, the Jews worship Lucifer, the Satan, the serpent. Jesus said this. If you believe in Jesus in the Bible, he said, ye are of your father the serpent. Just put that in your computer. It'll tell you where it is in the Bible, and you can look it up. And I got a whole book here to read and make a video out of. And it's horrible stuff to read this stuff. Trust me. I don't like it. Holy serpent of the Jews. And how they faked the Holocaust to bring about world war guilt and obligation to give them billions in reparations money. Extracting billions from the United States. We didn't have anything to do with it if it did happen, but it didn't happen the way they said it happened. Both the United States, during the war, rounded up all the Japanese and put them in internment camps. So did the Germans. These Gentiles included Arthur Balfour. So these Gentiles had something to gain. Probably they were Masons or Illuminati. Or a lot of them were fake non-Jews. Lord Milner, Lord Luther, Philip Kerr, Lord Robert Cecil, Chaim Weizmann recognized that Zionism is part of a much larger game. I'm telling you now, they're planning this new world order and new age. They're behind all the crisis, fake gun shootings and organizations, Black Lives Matter, trying to rile up a situation where the people will revolt against the government. They want that. Then the games will begin. Death and chaos and anarchy will come to America and the world. And it won't end well for us, we the people. They have all that high-tech equipment. To Cecil, the reestablishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine and the organization of the world into a great federation. Here's the plan. And again, they want a one world order, great federation. They've never been able to manage small cities and small states and countries. Who in their right mind would give these same people the world? They call us Goy and Goyim, which means cattle. They're obsessed with depopulation. They're spraying chemicals in the sky. They're building HARP microtransmitters all over the world. And so much more. to reestablishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine, and the organization of a world in a great federation, where complementary features is the next step in the management of human affairs. So I don't need to read anymore. If you want to get a book full of the facts, Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. And everything I've been saying seems to be reiterated in all the books I read, and I've got many more to do. But it's just another seriously educated person doing their research in government, in the universities, and in the military, etc. Like Tex Mars there, who wrote this book, is a retired Air Force officer. We're talking about a pretty smart guy with a lot of credentials, even starting up companies and consulting. And then him and his wife decided to give their lives to Jesus and start reading the Talmud and Zohar and other books in the Bible thoroughly. And he even says himself he was astonished at what he found. Just like I'm sure Henry Makow. And this book here I've been reading, it's just too much to believe. The Holocaust didn't happen the way they said. They also claimed, apparently it has something to do with 6. But when Rome went into, 2,000 years ago, when Rome went into Jerusalem and took over, invaded the place, they said 600,000 people were killed. Well, part of the Sephardim, or part of their religion, says the number times 10, that would be 6 million. So they were using that prophetic excuse back then. And then apparently in 1914, we'll go over this, World War I, they said 600,000 were killed by starvation and suffering. Again, part of the Kabbalah is times 10, so that's 6 million. And then after World War II, they used 6 million. So they had to fulfill this prophecy, as I'm getting the gist of that other book. The 6 million is an important part of fulfilling prophecy. And they got U.S. taxpayers' dollars to build this Holocaust museum in Washington, D.C., which much of it is off limits to people. And the design of the building is all of the occult, witchcraft, Kabbalah. Strange. So this video I made almost 3 years ago on this book. My second video. It's kind of amusing to watch myself back then. I guess I'm getting older. So thank you for watching my videos. Give me a thumbs up if you like what I'm doing. Leave a good comment. If you disagree with something, tell me why and I'll look into it. I'm not right on everything. I'm reading these books and also using my God-given brain. So here we go, my video that I published more than 2.5 years ago. Hello, my name is Rick Miracle, and I've decided to make some videos and share some of the knowledge that I've obtained in the last almost 10 years. And I hope you enjoy. Here's my information. Anyways, enjoy. I'm going to make a series of videos. Obviously, as you can see, I'm an amateur. I think I have something to share. And bit by bit, I want to do some book reviews of the 100+ books I've read. And save you the time of having to spend 10 years and read all that stuff and study. It's a lot of work. So enjoy and thank you. Hello, I'm back, Rick Miracle here. I'd like to talk about a book I just finished reading that has motivated me, prompted me to start doing these videos. I've read about 150 books in the last 10 years. This one here was like a compilation of many of those books. Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. I'd like to read for you just a tidbit. I'll do several different snapshots here so we can get the gist of this. Henry Makow, PhD it says here, is a Canadian Jewish man, a prolific writer. He's on the internet, henrymakow.com, and he's got some interesting things to say about what's happening in the world right now. Everything from, this is October 7th, 2013. We all know that the government is shut down. Yesterday, John Kerry announced they had several attacks on Libya. And there's a lot of chaos going on. And I think it's important that people get a grasp of what's going on, what the end game is. In other words, what's the purpose? So I'll turn to page 66. And the title here is "The Conspiracy is Against God." I know a lot of people don't believe in God anymore. And it's been programmed. The TV shows are seriously anti-God. Everything from South Park. One of my favorite shows is 2.5 Men. I like the comedy is good, but the innuendo, Charlie and his brother and the kid, and Charlie sleeping with a different girl every show. The innuendo is meant to take down your defenses, to encourage you to think anything is okay. With that said, let me just read a little bit. Page 66. The conspiracy is against God. It talks about the Russian Revolution. And it says here, God is love, and Satanists aren't big fans of love. Incredible and bizarre as this sounds, a satanic cult, the Illuminati, rules the world. A pastor, Wormbrand, who was imprisoned in Romania, says communism is an enhanced Satanism. Christians weren't just brutally persecuted, and murdered, they were made to blaspheme. Communist goal, the goal of the New World Order, we're all hearing that lately, is to mock God and praise Lucifer. A communist newspaper confessed, "We fight against God to snatch believers from Him." The Russian Revolution was a time when love, goodwill, and healthy feeling were considered mean. A girl hid her innocence, and husbands their faithfulness. In other words, you could get in a lot of trouble by being a decent person. Destruction was praised as good taste. This was the theme of new writers who burst on the scene out of obscurity. Men invented vices and perversion, and were fastidious in their avoidance of being thought moral. I've been ridiculed and called a prude because, things like this disturbed me. I'm new at this video thing. And so were other people. It was in the news. A lot of people were shocked. So what we have is this New World Order is being orchestrated by several factions. Some of the pictures I found. Snake grabbing the world. A lot of this is coming out, promoted, conspired with the Illuminati, bad people in the Masonic lodges, the banksters, the globalists. And if you mention the Zionist, you are called an anti-Semite, which is a big lie, because there are good Jewish people and bad Jewish people. Even the Jewish people don't subscribe to this. They want to end it. They're trying to tell us. The story is, to make it short, is the Hebrews were brought out of Egypt. A lot of people know that. Moses. And they had to, were told to obey God's word. And they didn't like that. They preferred to have open sex, swapping wives, drunken parties. And so they turned from God. And who is God's arch enemy? Well, Lucifer, the devil. So, and they got the churches involved in working to program your mind, teach you the new way of thinking. They have our capital. They've infiltrated our government. They pretty much have the whole world. This economic collapse, it's part of it. Kerry, Chuck Hagel, the wars, the battleships, Syria, Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, it's all part of it. The money, you should read the Protocols of Zion and many other documents we'll get to. But they're the bankrupting of the USA and the bankrupting of the world is intentional. That's how they're going to take us down. There's many good Jewish people fighting against this. So when you realize that Israel is the hub of the activity, which is supposed to be the headquarters, like the capital, instead of like Washington, D.C. is the capital of the USA. Well, there will be no USA, no Canada, no Mexico. There will be a one world order. And apparently Jerusalem and Tel Aviv will be these main ruling centers of the world. That's their goal. Right now it's out of Washington, Wall Street, London, the Vatican. But they're working to change all that. What, recently the war in Syria, about 100,000 people killed so far by NATO and Black Op projects by the USA government, my government, the UK government, France, Germany, the elites. The citizens have been pretty much discarded from the decision-making process. The citizens, you and me, we're victims. And there's a lot of Jewish people like Henry on that book I just showed you, Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. A lot of Jewish people trying to warn us. And they're going full steam with this program. Most of Africa and all the Middle East, people who are in our churches have sold us out. They're taking money from the government. Obama playing games, says one thing before he's elected, another thing after, another thing now. And it's creating a situation that's difficult to mention and talk about, but I suppose I should, is he's uniting the black people, or they're united behind him, and you could expect that. I mean, they have a black president, half black, but a black president, nevertheless. And when they don't understand the politics and the reality of what's going on, and that he's a puppet, just like George Bush. George Bush was a puppet. George Bush and Obama are doing the exact same thing. So it doesn't matter if you're black or white here. But anyways, they are rallying the troops, so to speak. And they're pitting the white people against the black people. It could be a bad day for everybody. So a lot of people don't approve of Zionism in the New World Order, or the Illuminati, and the Mason lodges across the country. They're one of the arms of the Illuminati, which are the banksters and the royal elite families that intermarry in UK and Germany and France. And they're working to control the world and take away your freedom. And in the United States here, they need to take away the guns, of course, and install more cameras and monitor your every movement, your bank account, everything you do. I just pray we wake up and people realize that, like me, even if this video is not as professional as anybody would like, people need to speak up. This is right, this is wrong. When the communists took over Russia in 1917, they were absolutely anti-God. Absolutely. And they ferreted out professors, school teachers, business owners, families, Christians, and they killed 20 million, admitted, and research has indicated maybe 66 million. They cut off the food supply. They starved the people to death. Can you imagine? And they tore down, destroyed all the Christian churches. They did not destroy any of the Jewish churches, temples. So these are the Jewish Zionists, the ones who turned from God. The other Jewish people who are fighting Zionism are like Christians and other people, even Muslims who believe in God and other religions who believe in God. It's like the people who are believing in God are fighting the Satanists. And a lot of people don't believe in God. They laugh at that and say it's superstitious. It's because you've been programmed to think that. It took them a long time, a lot of TV shows, a lot of cartoons. I was watching one cartoon that shocked me several years ago. In the living room, sitting on the floor with 6 or 7 kids, 8, 9, 10 years old. And they were watching cartoon, little Mary the Bear, Nancy the Bear, Tommy the Bear, a cartoon. And Tommy the Bear says to Mary the Bear, "What are you doing, Mary? This week you went out with Nancy, and last week you were dating Joey. Are you going to date a boy or a girl?" And Mary Bear says, "I can date whatever sex I want, whenever I want." These are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds watching TV. I realized they were being mind controlled. They were being programmed. And I thought to myself, 10 years down the road, when they're teenagers, 7 years, 8 years, they're not going to believe what I believe. And now we go out on the streets, and people are tattooed with demons on them, skulls on them, daggers on them, body piercings. It's almost to the point of insanity. Well, I'm back. Sorry about that. Phone rang. But I want to read a little more from Henry's book, The Cult That Hijacked the World. There's something called the Protocols of Zion. Zion means there's a mountain in Israel near Jerusalem called Mount Zion. And Zionism is to rule the world from that area, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. And the Zionist Jewish people, the ones who worship Lucifer, not to be confused with God-fearing Jewish people who worship God. And of course then there's Jewish people who don't worship Lucifer or are not really religious, and they're secular. I'm a Christian. I grew up Roman Catholic. And I'm a priest, and a lot of people who go to church 5 times a week are Orthodox, serious. And people like me don't go to church a lot, and we're secular. And then there's people, and it's kind of an irony, you see on one of the TV shows, a hitman, mafia, shoots a few people, and he does the sign of the cross. I thought, how ridiculous is that? So my point is you can be a Christian, you can be a good person, you can be a Christian, you can be a bad person, you can be a Christian, and just not be a really religious person and go on through life like me and believe in God and try to be a decent person, and get overly involved in the church system of it. Especially with all the marketing and advertising and the priest issues and other issues and the scandals and the ministers getting arrested for stealing all the money. It has turned a lot of us off. And interestingly enough, in the Protocols of Zion, there's a chapter called the Protocol 1, Protocol 2, where it says, and the protocols were written 150 years ago or something, that they were going to infiltrate the churches and create those situations. The faithfulness of the people would be deteriorated. So I thought I'd read a little bit about the Protocols of Zion, which some people try to say they're false. So let's read here what one rabbi says. Chief Rabbi of Sweden, Rabbi Euphrates, I'm probably saying it wrong, page 113 in Henry's book. Long have I been well acquainted with the contents of the protocols. Indeed, for many years, they were ever published, before they were even published in the Christian press, the protocols of the elders of Zion were in point of fact not the original protocols at all, but a compressed extract of the same. Of the 70 elders of Zion, in the manner of origin and in the existence of the original protocols, there are only 10 men in the entire world who know the truth. So let me just read one of the protocols and try to read a little more better without messing up on my language. The words liberty, fraternity, and equality are baits. The Masonic Jews used from ancient times to overthrow the genealogical aristocracy of the Goyim. They called anybody not Jewish Goyim, and that means cattle. They think of people as cattle, or bad Jews. The Zionist Jews think of the world, all the peoples that are not with their clan, their Lucifer worship Jewish program, Zionism, as Goyim. And if you go on JPost, which I do frequently, and you see the press releases, just like we have the press releases here in the United States, on the internet, you can write a comment. Well, if you go on the JPost and you look at the press releases, jpost.com, you'll see the comments. And they talk about us Goyim. And if you read that, you'll be a little stunned. Some of that mind control that people have gotten to not believe in God will probably fade away if they knew the truth. Morality is an obstacle to successful conquest and a liability to any political leadership. This is in the protocols. There remains a small space to cross, this is Protocol 3, before all states of Europe will be locked into the coils of the symbolic snake. Look at it. It's in the protocols. It's in the protocols. I may not be doing a great job at reading it, but you go online, look up the Protocols of Zion. 7, 8, 10 pages, I don't know, and read them. Listen to this. Did I just say it? The coils of the snake. press has fallen into our hands. It fashions the thought of the people. Protocol 2. Its role is to express and create discontent. I'm reading the instruction book for the Zionism to take over the world. You think they're getting there? Thanks to the press, we have the gold in our hands. Though we sacrificed many of our people. What do they mean by that? They sacrificed a lot of their people. Well, I'll tell you, this is my educated thinking. But and there are many books, and each one of these videos I make will be a book review of a different book. Remember, I've read 150, so it's going to be quite a lot of my videos. You won't have to read 150 books and spend 10 years like I did. Just watch a couple videos. But in Germany, the hierarchy of the Jewish religion was Orthodox. Remember, those were the good Jews. And they had assimilated with the German people. It was a great program. Right? Things were going fairly well, other than a lot of the intervention of the bad Jewish people who had an ulterior motive to take over the world. Anyways, so the German World War II and World War I, but let's talk about World War II. The banks of London, the Rothschilds, and the banks, the Federal Reserve in the USA, which was hijacked in 1913, 14. They had the secret meeting in Jekyll Island by Senator Hyde of all craziness. Remember the cartoon, Jekyll and Hyde? Wonder where they got that idea, huh? Anyways, so the Federal Reserve was owned, and is still owned, by the Bank of London, the Rothschild Empire, the leader of the Illuminati, his family, and runs all the other families, the 13 families below him. And they sponsored, and who created who is interesting questions, but Zionism is one arm, and the Freemason lodges across the USA is another arm. So when in these videos, I'm trying to take the complex structure of this and show you how they did it, and it's not so complex. Anyways, the banksters, the Rothschild, England, to get to the short of this story, they secretly financed Hitler's war machine. And at the same time, they had financial interest in refinancing Russia. And Russia was taken over by the Bolsheviks, who were Zionist Jews. And Stalin and Lenin and that gang, the Marxists, were actually getting out of hand. They weren't controllable by the Rothschild arm. So he and his cohorts, and they put our presidents in office at the time. All this is in many books, and we'll get to those books. And so they pitted Germany against Russia because Russia was not obeying the instructions from the banksters, the Zionism, the Rothschilds, the Illuminati. Does that make sense? So they financed and built up Hitler and wanted him to tame down Russia after the revolution in 18-something. And then later on, with Stalin and Lenin being out of control, they needed to nip that in the bud. And so anyways, they did, and at the end of World War II, the UK, the Balfour Agreement, and the Rothschild got his property in Israel to start building the state, country, center that was supposed to rule the world, the New World Order. Anyways, in Germany, Rothschild and all the other Zionist Jews had a huge problem. The Orthodox Jews, which was a huge community, and had all the educational centers where rabbis went to school to be rabbis. And they were Orthodox. They were the good Jews. And they believed in God and treating your fellow man equally. And didn't want to go with the Talmud, which is apparently a horrible biblical text that the Zionist Jews, instead of the Bible, and the Orthodox Jews used the Bible. And the Zionist Jews also use the Kabbalah, which is the occultic magic textbook for spells and other incantations and magic. So anyways, getting back to the story so I can finish it. What they had to do to get the cooperation of world Jews was to get rid of those Orthodox Jews, the good Jews in Germany. And from my education, and a lot of others, including in Henry's book, you can read it, is they had to destroy the good Jews and put the guilt on the rest of the world. Because they controlled the rest of the world. Not the people like you and me. Our politicians were lying to us. So anyways, when they were persecuting and killing the Orthodox Jews, this was the Zionist Jews, the Lucifer Jews, they told the President of the United States, they told the leader in London, the UK, and France, and Germany, and all the other countries, Austria, do not take these Jews. Refuse them entrance. Again, it's not people like you and me. It was the leaders who were bought and paid for by the Illuminati. So you got to get this pyramidal structure straight in your head. And what they were doing is they were funneling them to Israel, the ones they wanted. And they did not want the Orthodox Jews because they wouldn't cooperate with the plan. So a lot of Jews died. No doubt about it. But I think the Zionist Jews, the Lucifer Jews, were trying to get rid of the Orthodox Jews. And there were a lot of Christians and other people who are not even religious that were in cahoots. Presidents of the United States and leaders in the UK. Again, people put in office, not a representative of the people, but playing a different game. A very evil game. I hope I helped you get a grasp on this, but this is the goal. This is Zionism. This is Satanism. This is the Illuminati. This is the banksters. This is the Freemasons lodges. Now let me clear that up another second, because I've done it in my other videos. People join the lodges in Massachusetts and California, all over. People like me could even join. And you get in the first couple layers, like the Boy Scouts or whatever, and you're in it for the socialism, you're in it for the opportunities, the business connections, but it's a filter. They're not looking for the good guys. They're looking for the ones they can control. They're looking for the ones that they can talk the guy into cheating on his wife, having a wife-swapping party. Somebody they can have something on, and who won't object, and who will join in fleecing the people, deceiving the people, killing the people. And we'll get into a book on all that. And then if you're proved to be that kind of character, we've seen pictures of George Bush and the Skull and Bones, and Kerry and the Skull and Bones, and Obama is a Mason. They're all Masons. And once they got into the system and they proved they were on the inside, they were one of the guys. It's like a mafia. The Illuminati is up like a mafia. The mafia is another arm of the Illuminati. So anyways, so when I talk about the lodges and the Freemasons, of course I'm not talking about everybody. The good guys don't rise up. They don't get on the info on the inside. Just like in the churches taken over, that in the Protocols of Zion, in the book again. It says in here they will infiltrate the churches. And about 80 years ago, 1,000 men from Russia, from that area, were instructed to join the church. Remember, those Russian communists are anti-God. So they faked it. And they got in there. And who knows, a lot of these people who did bad things were these infiltrated people to make the institution of the Christian church look bad. To make the people lose their faith. It's in the Protocols of Zion. Written over 100 years ago. Read Henry's book. The Cult That Hijacked the World. And then you decide. Don't believe me. Please don't believe me. If you believe me, I've wasted my time with this video. You've got to look it up. You gotta get it for yourself. Then your conviction and showing it to other people, and a lot of people will laugh at you. No, there's no God anymore. And then you got these people having religious ceremonies, like the Bohemian Grove in California, that Alex Jones videoed that you could look up. And they're throwing a baby into the fire. And they've been doing sacrifices all over the world. Isn't this is news. This is stuff you can look up and see. This book's written. There's videos on it. They're praying and sacrificing and doing rituals. Sex is a big thing in the ritual process. Seinfeld. This was all programmed. This was out of Hollywood. He slept with a different girl in every show. Self-serving man. This is what they're trying to get people to be like. Join this church. Not God's church. That's what they want. All right, let me get on to the next section. Thank you for listening. And I hope I'm making some sense. Thanks. All right, this will be the last tidbit of information on this book, Illuminati, the Cult that Hijacked the World. I'd like to just point out something. When I read a book, I put all these little tabs in there. Things that I consider to be important. So I'll read this last part, and you can get the book and read it yourself, and look online and see some of Henry Makow's press releases or articles. They're online. You can read it. Henry Makow. M-A-K-O-W. Anyways, I want to read this last part, and that'll be the complete finish of this book review on Illuminati. The biggest improbability is that an Australian tramp, Hitler, street cleaner, and gay prostitute could become the Chancellor of Germany. Hitler joins a long list of obscure, blackmailable figures who have been catapulted to world prominence with the aid of the unseen hand. Again, let's get back to the Illuminati, the Masonic lodges, and other organizations, the Council of Foreign Relations. I could go on for a long time with the organizations they have. There's a thick book listing them. There's that many. Anyways, Hallett, this is an author, writes that Hitler's grandfather was Nathan Meyer Rothschild. Rothschild's Zionist Jew. The leader of the Illuminati was the father of Hitler's grandfather. These people, when they have a lot of offspring, illegitimate, again, this is Luciferian stuff, and they have a lot of illegitimate children, they seem to continue to keep track of their illegitimate children and bring them up through the ranks. A lot of people in your politics and running your country and everything else are these people. And if you go look them up on Wikipedia, you'll see they had one name and then another name where they were adopted. One of those is Newt Gingrich. Look him up. He's actually McPherson. If he's an illegitimate child of somebody, I don't know. But McPherson, because I think Newt Gingrich was getting a divorce for intermarital problems, and I just had a suspicion that something wasn't right, and I looked it up. He's McPherson. Anyways, Hitler's grandmother was a maid in the Rothschilds' Vienna mansion when his father, Alois, was conceived. In fear, in a satanic ritual rape. So Hitler's grandfather was born with the maid on a satanic ritual rape. That's what they do. They get a little turned on by aggressive sex, I suppose. Makes you wonder about all that TV programming we're all watching. The Rothschilds could only marry with their extended family, so they had illegitimate children who functioned as anonymous agents. See what I just said? Apparently this is a pattern with the Illuminati. This is the book says here next. I didn't say this. Bill Clinton is rumored to be a Rockefeller. Get Henry's book. I think I gave you enough incentive to do that. I read the book and it changed me. And I contacted Henry and I spoke to him on the internet, email, and he's a real guy. So I think people need to wake up. All this craziness, complete insane, or how shall I say, a low intellect TV programming, craziness on TV, basically designed for morons, stupid people, is outrageously popular. Sorry to get a little excited. But it just disturbs me because these people are trying to take over the world. It's almost like a surreal world. Twilight Zone. That's what I think. I see people playing in the park, everybody at the softball game, and I know this is going on. It's just too surreal. So get the book, look up Henry Makow, look up the Protocols of Zion, and they're online, they're free. Print it out, 6-7 pages. Take your time, read each Protocol 1, Protocol 2, I think it's 23. And read them slowly. Get a highlighter, highlight things that seem interesting. And you will see somebody is following the protocols. Right up to the point of trying to take the guns. Trying to take away your property rights. That's communism. Trying to take away God. To the point that the people who refuse to denounce God lose your head. That's pretty scary. But you know what's more scary? Is going and joining the Lucifer team. Because eternity is forever. And you join that team, it's forever. So what's they say they have to take the mark of the beast, 666. A lot of us think it's the microchipping they're trying to do. If you don't take the chip, you won't be able to get your paycheck, your Social Security check, buy groceries, buy gas. You won't be able to live. That's what they're aiming to do. But I don't think they can pull it off if we wake up. Tell your friends, wake up. People they're not going to go easily. They're going to resist. You have to be just gentle with them. Buy them a book. Say, just read this one book. Then you tell me I'm crazy. Go ahead. Get the book. Then you've got a right to tell me. Until then, listen. Anyways, God bless. Thank you for listening to me.